Number 10. Play areas. These are really specific to late 90s and early 2000s babies. The dream takes place in an area that's like a kid's play area. There can be bright colors, toys, and wall art. What most stands out though is the animatronics, animals, and trees with faces that can talk. The best comparison I can think of is to what you can find at Great Wolf Lodge. It's very strange, but it's your subconscious going back into your mind and warping memories you had as a child. It's creepy and nostalgic all in one, but just know you're not alone in dreaming these things. Number 9. Grass hills. It's common to dream about being outside with big winding hills that are neon green and a bright blue sky. It's so bright and nice, it's almost unsettling. It can be compared to where the Teletubbies live and almost cartoon looking. Another good example is the landscape home screen from Windows. You know which one I'm talking about. It doesn't quite make sense physically how the hills got there and how they're structured, but there's a sense of familiarness to it. This dream can represent your fear of new responsibilities. You are letting others determine where you go or decide on your goals, and you want to explore and experiment. An example of this type of dream is, I was wandering in my backyard and I was chasing a butterfly. As I looked away from a moment, I realized that I was on a hill and all I could see out were more and more hills. When I looked back at the butterfly, it was gone, and I was alone in this space I couldn't escape from. Number 8. An empty water park / pool. It's common to dream about an empty water park or pool area. It's a confined area of water. Whereas dreams about open water, lakes, and oceans are seen as being free and endless possibilities, these places are about being contained. It's usually in a dark room or at nighttime, and the water can be green and murky. This type of dream is an indication of anxiety, stress, and other negative thoughts. It could imply that challenging situations are coming your way as a result of lack of preparation and effort. This dream encourages you to work harder and consider the consequences of your actions. An example is, I keep having a reoccurring dream about some kind of abandoned water park. It's like a giant square pool with massive slides going into it, nothing else. And in these dreams, I'm in one of these slides heading into the mossy, dirty, and stagnant water. It's quite horrifying to say the least, and sometimes the dreams lead onto a feeling of drowning. Yikes. Number 7. A parking lot. A dream that comes up for a lot of people is dreaming that you're in a parking lot at night. It's dark and cold, and there are either no cars or only a couple, and I'm not sure which is worse. Usually, you can't make out if you're in a parking lot in front of a store or just out in the middle of nowhere. Dreaming about this means that you're having a problem accepting an aspect of your own character. Somebody may be pretending to be somebody they are not and are hiding under a facade and is a harbinger for someone who is mysterious. An example is, I exited a building at nighttime and I was in their parking lot. There were maybe 1 or 2 cars there, no one was around, and it made me feel weird. I kept looking around because I felt like someone was watching me and I couldn't shake the feeling. Number 6. An empty hospital. Everyone has had those empty hospital dreams, right? It's dark, the lights are flickering, and most importantly, you're alone. The dream of seeing a deserted and empty hospital has a more personal meaning though. It can mean that you have to stop putting all your hopes into others and pursue your desires. Your goal is usually only about yourself, so you are often the only one who is interested in achieving it. So you have to take the initiative and fight for what you want. An example is, I've been having dreams of different rooms inside an abandoned asylum I've never been to. I dream of different people in there. Sometimes they're chasing after me, sometimes they're lovely and we talk. One time I was in the World War hiding from invading soldiers and they wanted to make me fight for their side. Another time it was me and my 2 friends I used to live with running towards this huge tree as a swarm of people were trying to get us. Number 5. An abandoned food court / mall. Many people dream about an abandoned food court and mall. It's usually somewhat familiar, like that old mall in your hometown that shut down. It's dark, dingy, and there's an eeriness to it. The floor is filled with pale colored tiles and there's abandoned tables and chairs. Dreaming of this represents the dreamer's feelings of being unwanted or unloved. It may be due to lack of control in your own lives, which reenacts what it would feel like to lose or leave the surrounding things, signifies sadness or depression. Shopping often has to do with making choices, and it's associated with decisions and preferences. An example of this dream is, I was on a date in a mall that I've known all my life, but it looked very different in the dream. We were talking and having a good time, but the thing was the mall was completely empty and there were no people in it at all. wall. At one point in the dream, we went to an arcade that I'd been to as a child. I remembered this arcade as always being one of my favorite places to go as a child, and of course, since the mall was so empty, the arcade was empty too and almost looked run down. In the dream, I felt this sort of sadness on how empty and run down it was, as I always remembered it being a fun and lively place in my childhood. Number 4. A dark hallway. This is a creepy one. Dreams about long, dark hallways you can't see at the end of are common. You feel trapped and scared, not knowing where the hallway leads to or if there's anyone else there with you. It's particularly frightening to those who are scared of the dark. It's said that a long and dark passage indicates insecurity, discontent, nostalgia, and worries. If you find yourself in the passage, this means that you are in trouble. If you are brave enough to go through the passage, this suggests that you will overcome difficulties. To dream that you go through a dark tunnel means that you can accomplish what you wish, but first you will suffer some disappointments. An example of this is, I dreamed that I was in prison with my mother. At one point I lost my mother and there was a fire alarm ringing and I was confused and lost and didn't know where to go because there was no guard. So I walked around and fell on the ground where I was looking straight down at a dark hallway but couldn't move a limb. I was completely paralyzed, and as I was looking down the hallway I saw two entities that were an in-between of dog and human. They pointed at me and started going towards me and I tried to scream, but my mouth was paralyzed too. Number 3. Waiting in a waiting room. Many people dream of waiting in a waiting room. It could be full of people or empty. It follows with a feeling of doom and there's a yellow tinge to everything. A lot of people don't know what they're waiting for or what the waiting room is for. It could be for a doctor's office, a bank, a work meeting. The possibilities are endless. Waiting can be boring and frustrating, but a dream where you are forced to wait can actually suggest that you need to slow down in a situation where you are too busy to notice that you are unfulfilled. In the dream, it can feel eerie and that you want to leave, but it's telling you to do the opposite in your real life. An example is, basically, there was this laptop said to transfer your consciousness out of your body into some waiting room. It would be for 2 hours, but that crawled along for me. You were transported to this waiting room with other subjects, but couldn't communicate or leave the room. If you tried, a tall, lanky stick creature would follow you and make screeching noises and chase you until you were transported back into the waiting room. The thing was fast, man. I think I got to a point where I was tired of waiting and I could hear it rambling outside in the dark halls. Number 2. Doors in the middle of nowhere. Another common dream is seeing doors in the middle of nowhere. No matter if it's in the middle of a field, a body of water, or the middle of a room, it's somewhere where a door shouldn't be. We've all likely heard a number of sayings about doors. Don't close the door on an opportunity, leave the door open for love, when one door shuts, another one opens. Each of these is about being open and available to something. When you dream about an open door or walking through a doorway, this could be about moving forward into a new opportunity in your life. It could be about something you are currently going through or something you are looking forward to, something you yearn for. It's said that seeing doors in your dreams relate to a period of transition or change, whether it's positive and full of opportunity or representative of a more fearful, apprehensive time in your life. Doors can represent mystery in our lives, both good and bad. The doors create a barrier and the unknown lies behind the closed door. Until you open the door, you don't know what's behind it. It's a subconscious thing that many people experience, but it's specific to you and what you're going through in life. And number 1, the back rooms. For those of you who don't know, the back rooms is an urban legend. The back rooms are an alternate dimension, but one that is not like many other alternate dimensions in the universe. While others seem to be pocket dimensions that are linked to our own reality, the back rooms runs deep inside our own reality, meaning there is no physical way to enter it. Rather, a person enters the back rooms when in a state of deep despair or during sleep. Ending up in the back rooms is said to be the fate of those who accidentally no-clip through reality and into another dimension. It's described as an endless maze of randomly generated office rooms and other environments. It's characterized by the smell of moist carpet, walls with a monochromatic tone of yellow, and buzzing fluorescent lights. Some may reach the back rooms accidentally on their first attempt, while it may take others hundreds or even thousands of attempts. It's also said that a solitary creature roams the back rooms. It only appears in certain dreams and the person never sees it. They simply hear its cries and immediately turn and run in the opposite direction. These places are weird and scary, and if you're not prepared to enter the back rooms, people tend to try to wake up from this as fast as they can.
Kicking off with the most obvious entry, we got number 10, Elm Street. Now, obviously I'm referring to the dream world from Nightmare on Elm Street and not Elm Street itself. Dream world just doesn't have the same umph, you know? Venturing into the realm of dreams opens the door to a terrifying dimension exemplified by the dream world from Nightmare on Elm Street. Here, the rules of reality are discarded like forgotten toys. Freddy Krueger, an iconic figure in the horror genre, reigns supreme, distorting the fabric of dreams. Unlike physical spaces, the dream world thrives on the canvas of the subconscious. Freddy's ability to manipulate this world, where imagination and fear intertwine, blurs the line between sleep and wakefulness. It's a place where your mind's creations manifest into tangible horror. The eerie sensation of being chased, trapped, or hunted feels authentic. The dream world transcends mere locations. It's a psychological labyrinth where the ordinary twists with the terrifying, all under the almighty and uncontested rule of Edward Scissorhands the burn victim, I mean Freddy Krueger. If you're enjoying this video so far, please support the channel by pressing like, subscribing to Most Amazing, and ringing that notification bell. I would really appreciate it. Otherwise, I'll haunt your dreams. Ooh. At number 9, Other Mother's World from Coraline. This pocket dimension, accessible through a curious door in the Pink Palace apartments, is ruled by the enigmatic Beldam, aka the Other Mother. However, this realm is not just confined to her control alone, as other entities like the cat also hold sway. However, here, the Beldam crafts a mimicry of the real world, amplified to both awe and terrify when the time calls for it. Yet this realm's essence is ever shifting, tailored to each victim's desires. Attempting to escape simply by running from the palace is futile, as this world is like a miniature globe where every path circles back to the Pink Palace. And by the end of Coraline's journey, the entire world has unraveled, point where all that remains is the palace's interior. In this realm, reality is only what you perceive, but nightmares lurk beneath the surface. At number 8, the hallway from Silent Hill PT. Venturing into the realm of unsettling experiences, let's tread down the eerie path of the infamous hallway from Silent Hill's playable teaser. This virtual corridor, laden with shadowy textures and faint whispers, remains etched in the minds of gamers and thrill seekers alike. Its looping architecture defies logic, a Mobius strip of dread that continuously folds in on itself. Each step conjures anticipation, the unknown lurking right around the corner. I was gonna say every corner, but there's only one. The uncanny photorealistic graphics combined with the pervasive atmosphere of dread, amplified by that haunting voice on the radio and the player's inability to do anything but continue trekking down through that same haunted hallway, forced to uncover the tragic backstory, amplifies its effect on the psyche. PT is no mere digital construct. It's a chilling exploration into the uncanny valley where familiarity and strangeness meld into a discomforting harmony. Few virtual spaces encapsulate true psychological horror like this freaking hallway. It lingers in your memories even after you play, that will force you to hold your breath every time you turn a corner. At number 7, the back rooms. No clipping through the floor of this virtual game you and I refer to as reality. You find yourself trapped in a labyrinth expanse of seemingly endless, identical empty rooms adorned with fluorescent lighting and yellow wallpaper, filling you with an uneasy sense of familiarity. Each step echoes with a disconcerting hum, and the flickering fluorescent lights cast eerie shadows that play tricks on your perception. There's a musty scent in the air, coupled with a dreaded feeling of abandonment that lingers. And as you navigate through this bizarre construct, a sense of dread intensifies. The constant monotony of the environment gnawing at your sanity. There's an unshakable feeling that something is lurking just beyond sight, waiting. Your mind races and a creeping unease crawls down your spine. Is this a dream, a parallel reality, or is it something more sinister? The back rooms beckon with their enigmatic terror, a place exclusive to the realm of your nightmares. At number 6 is the biblical hell. Hell is a place of eternal torment and punishment for the wicked, according to many religions, but what does it look like? And how can we avoid going there? Well, that depends on who you ask. Different cultures and traditions have different versions of hell, but some of them are more more terrifying than others. One of the most horrifying depictions of hell is the biblical one, which is based in the Hebrew word Sheol and the Greek word Hades. These words mean the underworld, the grave, or the pit. In the Bible, hell is described as a place of darkness, fire, worms, weeping, and the gnashing of teeth. It is also a place where Satan and his demons rule and torment the souls of the damned. The Bible also mentions some specific locations in hell, such as Gehenna, Tartarus, and the lake of fire. Gehenna was a valley near Jerusalem where people burned their garbage and sacrificed their children to pagan gods. Tartarus was a prison for the fallen angels who rebelled against God, and the lake of fire is the final destination for Satan, his followers, and anyone whose name isn't written in the book of life. At number 5, the Overlook Hotel from The Shining. The Overlook Hotel, famously depicted in Stephen King's The Shining, and its 1990 film adaptation, is undeniably one of the most eerie places you can only encounter within the confines of your own nightmares. This grand, isolated structure, perched atop a mountain, holds a distinct position. You see, unlike conventional haunted locales, the Overlook Hotel isn't just a backdrop. It's a character in itself, with intentions and desires. This differentiation is pivotal. Within the film, the hotel itself takes on the role of the overarching antagonist, influencing the minds of its inhabitants. See, the hotel itself, or rather more accurately, the demon who possesses the hotel, is an entity that drives its inhabitants to madness. The sinister puppeteer behind Jack Torrance's descent into evil, which ultimately made him the main antagonist. This nightmarish synergy, where the building itself becomes a puppet master, makes the Overlook a uniquely chilling place reserved solely for the realms of our dreams gone awry. At number 4, the Spencer Mansion from Resident Evil. Originally masquerading as an upscale country club, this mansion had far more sinister purpose lurking behind its elegant facade. Constructed in the late 60s, its hidden secrets were unraveled in 1998 amidst the terrifying outbreak of the T-virus. The tranquil halls transformed into a nightmarish landscape where the human-eating human horrors and mind-altering chaos reigned supreme. The mansion's uncanny remoteness masked the sinister activities transpiring beneath. As chaos escalated, the Umbrella Corporation-backed STARS police force ventured in, concealing their true mission under the pretense of investigation. And while the horrors of the Spencer Mansion have faded from public view, the chilling mystery endures. The labyrinth of corridors remain tainted by the darkness of those times, untouched due to military lockdowns and CDC restrictions. The mansion now stands as a chilling reminder of the nightmarish interactions between science, power, and terror. At number 3 is the Red Room from Twin Peaks. The Red Room from Twin Peaks, a perplexing and nightmarish realm, exists in a series of interconnected spaces separated only by heavy red velvet curtains. These curtains serve as the sole barriers between its enigmatic sections, where their height defy conventional understanding. Inexplicably, these curtains can lift to unveil an expanse of boundless darkness, the patterned floor extending into an eerie void. Distinctive chevron patterns adorn the floor, alternating between off-white and dark brown hues. Curiously, the floor's material can shift from solid to carpet in the realm of dreams. Perceptible physical laws don't hold sway in the Red Room. Its layout morphs unpredictably, thwarting any coherent navigation. Temporal rules blur too. Individuals like Dale Cooper and Annie Blackburn inhabit it in a dream long before their actual entry. Adding to the mystery, the room houses malevolent duplicates known as doppelgangers, identifiable only by their clouded white eyes. In this uncanny space where one can only speak backwards, reality bends, time distorts, and the sinister thrives. At number 2, the derelict ship from Alien. Imagine finding yourself on a desolate moon, surrounded by an eerie landscape that seems to whisper secrets from another realm. There, amidst the haunting silence, lies the derelict ship from the Alien universe, a vessel that beckons with an aura of ancient mystery. First discovered by the ill-fated crew of the USCSS Nostromo, its spacecraft's origin and purpose remain shrouded in mystery. Its asymmetrical wishbone shape and skeletal walls hint at a design beyond human comprehension. The ship's interior, a surreal fusion of technology and biology defies conventional understanding, with tunnels leading to unknown destinations. But what's truly puzzling is the ship's orientation. Is it the bow or the stern the screws encounter? The puzzle only deepens when the unsettling atmosphere of the ship, where the space jockey forever sits in its pilot seat, adding an eerie touch. As we ponder the enigmatic derelict, we're reminded that even in the realm of nightmares, there are places more mysterious than we can fathom. And at number 1, Silent Hill's Otherworld. Venturing into the realm of nightmares, we encounter the enigmatic phenomenon known as the Otherworld. Also dubbed Other Side, Alternate World, or Dark World, this unsettling reality takes form in the eerie setting of Silent Hill, Maine. Is it a parallel plane or a separate dimension? Well, that's just a matter of perspective. The Otherworld defies precise definition, hovering on the cusp of reality and unreality. Imagine a space where the fabric of existence itself is distorted, a place where the line between real and surreal is completely blurred. Existing in a dimension beyond the human grasp, this eerie realm feeds off of the minds of those who tread its unsettling grounds, conjuring personal hells and limbo-like landscapes. The influence of the Otherworld seeps into neighboring towns, spreading like a supernatural contagion, distorting reality and intertwining dimensions. Welcome to a place where the unimaginable takes form and reality becomes a nightmare.
Number 10, The Basement. This nightmare was written by Redditor Flugu. This happened back when they were only 8 years old and lasted over months. I can attest to stuff like this is horrible. When I was really young, my sister told me there was monsters under my bed, and it took me forever to fall asleep properly. This Redditor also had some stress issues involving their sister. He had a nightmare where he and his sister would be sitting in the basement. His sister would get up to go grab a drink of water, and then her face would start to change. Her mouth and nose would start to shrink, and her eyes grew larger. Then he would try to run out of the basement. The creature that used to be his sister would grab him and give out this demonic scream. He would be paralyzed and only left with the ability to scream back. The dreams persisted and were so bad that he once stayed up for 72 hours straight because he was too frightened to sleep. It's pretty bad. Number 9, TikTok. This nightmare is about all those TikTok videos where people embarrass themselves for our entertainment. No, not really, but I could see people having vivid fever dreams of Johnny. This nightmare actually sounds more like a stress dream from hell. Just reading it gave me anxiety. The writer says when they would start dreaming, they would hear a ticking noise that would get louder and louder until the noise was almost unbearable, and then out of nowhere, it would fade out and it would go back to quiet. Just then, they would hear a soft laughter right in their ear. It would obviously freak them out, and they would jump out of their sleep awake. Then they would think it would all be fine, they would calm down. When they would go back to sleep, the ticking would start all over again. Number 8, the Titanic. We've got one that was submitted anonymously on Ranker. I bet when James Cameron was making the Titanic, he wasn't thinking about giving millions of people fear of drowning, and nor should he. He was too busy dancing in a pot of gold and rubbing diamonds on his nipples. Well, this person had a reoccurring nightmare pulled right out of the blockbuster hit. They would have a dream where they'd be on the Titanic with their mom and dad. They knew the ship was sinking, and they would try to warn their parents. Her parents would just brush her off and lock her to a room, only to have the room start filling with water while she knew her whole family was struggling for their lives out there. I mean, you probably shouldn't let your kids watch the Titanic. It's very long, so boring, and there's full-on boobs in it. I'm like, that's bad parenting. Number 7. Lost at sea. Water fears are very common and completely justified. I used to teach scuba diving, so I understand exactly how useless humans are underwater. You really don't get it until you see a fish move up close. Humans in water are basically seals on land, which is why I completely understand this next nightmare. This person wrote that they would be having a pleasant dream where they'd be swimming with their family, and then they would get their head dunked underwater, pop up, and everyone would be gone. They would be in the middle of the ocean, alone. The sky would shift to a piercing black, and there would be no noise. The sky would then transmutate into the shape of an eyeball. She would then be stuck in a glass box filled with water, and the box would start flopping around. She'd be struggling to breathe. Just then, when she thought she was about to die, she would wake up desperate for air. That's terrifying. Also, when I said I completely understand, I meant I understand why this would be scary. I have no idea what it's like to be lost at sea, missing from your family with a giant eyeball floating around in the sky. I mean, like, that's something for you psychologically, that's your own thing. Number 6, partners in crime. Redditor 41 pounds 5 gallons filled us in on how he used to have dreams where he'd be out committing crimes with different members of his family. I don't think I could do that with anyone I'm related to. There would be so much bickering, and then we would end up getting caught, and my sister likes to gossip way too much. And this dream didn't end well either. During one of these crime-filled visions, it was him and his brother out committing robberies. While in the midst of a robbery, a police officer caught up with them and drew a knife. The policeman then stabbed his brother through the mouth and out the back of his head with a huge blade. He remembers it vividly, like it was almost real. The freakiest part about this is the writer's brother is dead, and it was the only time he saw his face in a dream. Pretty unsettling. Number 5. They're here. When you have a scary dream, sometimes they're incredibly vivid. You feel like you really lived it. You remember fine details. Sometimes you even remember falling asleep in the dream. This person was having dreams that were exactly that. He would be sitting, watching TV, probably just binging the Kardashians like we do, you know, and then the TV would go to black. So he'd grab the remote and turn it back on. Just then it would go to static, which is terrifying. I mean, who has basic cable? Just get a Netflix account like the rest of us. Oh my god. Then the static would make him start to feel drowsy and eventually would fall asleep. Suddenly he would wake up and feel a tight pressure on his chest, like someone was standing on top of him. He would look up and see a black figure over top of him staring down. He couldn't make out the face because the figure was wearing a mask, but he could see large white eyes through the mask staring back at him. At this point, he would jolt awake and I'm assuming start a free trial for Hulu. Number 4, stuck. Now, I don't know if you've ever heard of lucid dreaming. If you don't know what it is, it's mastering your dreams through practice. You basically get to the point where you can control your dreams and do whatever you want. If I could do this, I would probably just eat carbs with no consequence. But one of the downfalls of lucid dreaming is by practicing this, you risk falling into sleep paralysis. But one of the downfalls of lucid dreaming is by practicing this, you are at risk of falling into sleep paralysis. This is where you get caught in between a state of conscious and unconscious. You can't move like as if you were sleeping, but you're like in somewhat of a dream state. You can still see what's going on around you. People who get caught in this often hallucinate and sometimes see things that are horrifying. This lady had some horrible cases of sleep paralysis where she would try to fall asleep, get stuck in sleep paralysis, and then see a gargoyle with glowing red eyes and fleshy wings hanging from her ceiling. It wouldn't get closer or make any noise, it would just keep staring at her. Why does everything fun come at a cost? Number 3, The Rot. This one was written by Prebos on Reddit. She's driving in her car with her wife, and her wife starts dying. So she pulls over, and then there's this overwhelming feeling of fear. She thinks everyone's gonna think that her wife died in her car because she killed her. So she goes to get help from a neighbor, but can't find anyone. When she goes back to her wife, she's still alive, but she's decomposing and staring at her. Then everything starts to go dark. Her wife's half-alive, rotting body is staring at her, so she runs home because she's terrified. Then when she gets home, it stays dark. None of the lights will come on, and all she can find is a dim flashlight. The rot that was growing from her wife's body is now in the house. The rot is forming on the walls, and maggots are crawling all over the floors and are all over the place. She locks herself in a room with the dim flashlight and a couch that seems to be clean of any decay. She lays down and then wakes up in real life. So we got a rotting wife, we got rot infecting the home. I'm not a psychiatrist, but you might need a little bit of help with your relationship. I don't know. Number 2, End of the World. This one might be a result of watching too many doomsday videos on YouTube, but this guy would have 2 different reoccurring end of the world dreams. One, he would cross the street to visit his grandparents and then look back and see a massive meteor crash into their home, followed by a rain of flaming rocks. The following dream was him with his whole family hanging out in a field. I imagine they're probably having a nice little picnic. And what ruins a picnic better than ants? Well, a giant nuclear explosion. He would describe it as looking up at the mountains and then see them consumed in a giant wall of flame that keeps moving closer. Him and his family would huddle together and they would feel the heat blast over them and engulf them. At least going out like that, I would have one final moment to tell my parents that it was me who replaced their vodka with water and not my sister. Number 1, school bombing. The most terrifying thing about having reoccurring nightmares is having them take place somewhere you go frequently. It makes them feel less like dreams and more like prophecies. This girl would have dreams of her school being bombed. She would see devastation all around her. Her friends dying, people in pain, the school being destroyed, and of course she would experience the old dream cliche where she couldn't move at all. We've all had dreams like that where you try to run or you try to fight and it feels like you're stuck in slow motion. I find dreams like that so unsettling because when you go to school the next day you feel like you're gonna have these flashbacks from the night before.
Starting off this list in our number 10 spot we have wolves. Okay, this is a story that reflects the first time I heard about astral projection, my immediate fear and worry I had about it. Not returning to your body when you want. They start off the story by writing that their experience started off normally. They flew through their bedroom window and there was a man in their backyard drinking a beer by a fire pit. The storyteller joins them for a drink, they talk like old friends, there were some other entities, but everything was just good vibes. Then they wrote, quote, all of a sudden I see 3 wolves come in from the backyard with strange freaky looking masks and they say, do you all want to play a game? As soon as they said that, I said hell no to myself and quickly went to snap back to my body. They then explained that despite every other projection experience they've had being able to return directly towards their body whenever they wanted, this time it was different. They were back in their body but they couldn't wake up. They couldn't move. They then explained that once they were finally able to wake up fully, they saw little dark spots and felt like they weren't fully back from the astral plane into the physical one. Now, the next time they went to project, the wolves were still in the backyard waiting to see if they were coming out again, so they probably smartfully decided against it. In our number 9 spot today we have 11 Days. This is a story that comes from a Reddit user and the short of it is really summed up well in the caption, quote, I accidentally had an astral projection that lasted 11 full days in my mind. Okay, we're off to quite the start. Basically, this person starts off by explaining that this isn't the first time they've accidentally astral projected. Like the other day I accidentally slipped and fell on ice. I don't know how people are out here accidentally having an out-of-body experience, but I guess some people just have more interesting lives than me. So basically this projection starts out with this person being in a cemetery. They didn't have a body and instead they were just floating around. Then a sort of guardian spirit appeared and told them that they had a job they needed to do. They then spent 3 days digging in a cave and ended up digging a skeleton out of the ground, and once that was dug up, then they were no longer floating around and they suddenly had a body. From then on, this person and the spirit went walking through the forest having long conversations about the person's life, and the spirit told them what would later happen to them in their life and answered a bunch of questions the person had for them. The final moment of the projection was when, on the last day, they arrived at a waterfall. The spirit allowed the person to play in the beautiful area for 3 hours and remarked how it was sad that they couldn't stay. After this, the spirit told them it was time to go and they woke up again. They end off their story by saying that they weren't able to see the spirit's face, and while he told this person his name, they couldn't remember it as soon as they woke up. This left them with a distinct impression that they weren't supposed to know or remember these things. In our number 8 spot today we have Breathe. This story is one that the poster called an odd experience, but I'm not gonna lie, when I read it, it was the one single story that got me kind of intrigued into the idea of projection. I don't think I'm gonna try it anytime soon, but I'll admit, it sounded kind of inviting. They wrote, quote, so I was laying in bed last night and decided I wanted to try an astral project. I was just laying there and kinda came up with my own meditation technique when something kinda strange but really stimulating happened. Both my body and mind were still awake, so I don't know if I call this was me about to astral project or what. Suddenly my body felt really light but heavy at the same time. Also, it was like a new energy that I've never felt. I've also never breathed better in my life. So I'm asking if anyone knows what this was. I mean, I definitely can't say what this was, but it sounds kinda cool. There's just something about the idea of being able to breathe better that I want to experience. Can anybody tell me if that's normal to astral projection? Maybe that's what's gonna get me into it. In our number 7 spot today we have The Beginner. This is an astral projection story that I guess shows an experience that is fairly common for beginners. They wrote about how they began with having sleep paralysis. They wrote, quote, wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. I know it's all hallucinations. I didn't see anything, but it sounded like there was something scratching at my window. I closed my eyes and floated upwards. Again, I closed my eyes but could still see me passing stuff, but eventually I was in a black place. So I opened my eyes as an experiment and boom, back back in my body. This happened before when I attempted an astral projection out of a lucid dream. Same deal. So it appears as though they are capable of the projection but are just having trouble seeing. This probably isn't the most wild story on this list, but it is still quite interesting to see how people have different experiences and that sometimes it can be based on your experience level. In our number 6 spot today we have The Child. This story is about a very strange astral projection experience someone had. They wrote, quote, "I was having normal lucid dreams all over the place and I came back home right over my body and could see myself and the blanket I was sleeping under. Right as I began watching myself sleep, I felt something bite me. And in the dream, I lifted up my blanket and a small child crawled out and I told it to get the heck out and it ran out the front door. I then woke up in real life. Weirdest AP of my life. Just had to share it here." They then go on to ask Reddit if anyone else has ever been touched or hurt while astral projecting and had it actually hurt in their physical body. This seems like a super terrifying experience, but I also think bizarre is the perfect word for it as well. I definitely don't think the person this happened to was expecting it. I honestly don't know much about astral projection, so I wonder what this all could mean. In our number 5 spot today we have The Fall. This story is about someone who had a negative astral projection experience, but they said it was still a fairly light-hearted one, which is always good. They wrote about how they went to bed early, so they tried some meditation to help them as they wanted to either lucid dream or astral project. I find this so funny because I absolutely hate dreams. I think sleep should be peaceful. I don't want to be thinking about stuff. I want to be left alone. Any day I wake up and can't remember my dreams from the night before is a great morning for me. So maybe I don't understand the desire, but I still think it's cool. They then go on to say that after this, once they had fallen asleep, they woke up every 2 hours and at one point they felt like they were awake but that their body was still asleep. They then tried to roll out of bed / out of their body and it worked, but maybe a little too well. Their projection self fell out of bed and hurt their hip, and it actually physically hurt them, which in the end returned them to their body. They end up saying it's no hard feelings, something that they just kind of laughed off. It was just surprising and kinda silly. In our number 4 spot today we have The Sudden Projection. This Reddit story starts off with a person explaining that normally when doing some sort of astral projection work, it takes them about an hour or so to build up the vibrations that lead them to the breakthrough. It takes time for them and isn't really something that happens suddenly. They then go on to explain that the night prior to their posting, they were just trying to head off to sleep when all of a sudden they saw brightness behind their eyelids and felt vibrations throughout their whole body. They wrote, quote, "I felt spinning and weightless almost immediately after. Meanwhile, that brightness was a pure fuzzy bright white light with a grayish flickering circle in the middle of my sight, which appeared to have, for lack of a better word, lightning strikes all over the place. That circle with the lightnings or cracks started rotating very fast and 2 even brighter spots appeared to the left and right of it, and I felt accelerating. They then leaned into the feeling, it kept accelerating until what they described as breaking through the circle and a typical, quote, sonic boom sound. After this, their destination slowly started appearing to them, but it was slowly loading, almost like a video game, and it was black and white or grayscale. This was sadly the end of what they can remember from their sudden, accidental astral projection. In our number 3 spot today we have The Smile. This is a story that comes from someone who marked this as a negative astral projection experience. They wrote, quote, "About 30 minutes ago I decided to try astral projection again since I hadn't done it in a long time, but had a very non-pleasant experience. I went about the usual methods, simply entering a meditative state. Before I had assumed it didn't work, so I opened my eyes and I was trapped in my body. I tried to lift myself, but to no avail. For some reason, I felt myself smiling widely, almost like my mouth was stuck that way, and despite my best efforts, I could not change its position. I began to hear a woman's whisper, and I would hear familiar instrumentals to songs. I felt like something was trying to enter me, like it was going through my nose, so I demanded it to leave, and it did. I went to check my phone, but it wouldn't work. For some reason, I had 2, but I do not own 2. Honestly, I don't even know where to start. This sounds absolutely terrifying, but also the most random collection of things. Some of the people responding to this story suggested that perhaps it was sleep paralysis, but there are also people discussing how the presence felt might have been some part of their consciousness that they had previously tucked away. In our number 2 spot today we have The Shockwave. This story is about a negative experience someone had, and they were posting it in the hopes of finding someone who could give them a little guidance as they were feeling really unsure about the entire thing. They wrote, quote, "I was going through different eras full of beautiful sounds and ended up in complete darkness. There was a pinpoint of light, tiny. I pulled away as I feared it. As I pulled back to reality, it shocked my entire body. I convulsed. I was awake, but my consciousness was not with me. Every time I tried to move, I got vertigo, laid back down, and my body made me go back. I saw the light again. Boom, shocked my body again. I jumped. My heart raced as I was terrified. I was going 1,000 miles an hour or faster. I fought it and pulled myself out, zapped again once more. I was able to stay awake at this point, but I was done at the point with no desire to go back. Is this normal? What are your experiences? Personally, this entire list is about stuff I have never experienced at all, so it's tough for me to say what's normal and what's not. If you're more familiar, maybe you can let us all know down in the comments. This sounds thrilling and terrifying, but is it a typical experience? In our number 1 spot today, we have the Entity. Honestly, I am getting surprised at how many people somehow accidentally astral project. This is another one of those stories, and they wrote, quote, "I've been curious about astral projection on and off for years now, but never fully committed. I've had a few accidental lucid dreams too, but I never got the full hang of it. This morning I woke up, scrolled on the phone for a bit, then fell back asleep, but I felt like I was in a sleep paralysis, but in a different room, which was strange, so I thought maybe I could try it and see where I am. My body started feeling weightless, like as if I were flying, but I couldn't see anything but this blank wall that resembles the wall in my room, but it's blank. The walls in my room all have decorations and posters. I started seeing a human figure in the wall that started smiling at me, but it wasn't a friendly smile. It felt like it was saying the words 'fall' to me, and it just kept saying it angrily. Then my body started feeling like it was actually falling, but I was still trapped in my bed. My blanket felt heavier. The only thing I could do was to breathe and just try practicing meditation, hoping I would calm down and get out. In this space I was in, I felt like I was able to slowly scoot out of the blanket, then I woke up." That sounds absolutely terrifying. I can't even imagine. I know this was accidental, but that definitely would have been enough for me to never project again. I want in my body experiences only after that.
Starting off this countdown, we have the husband in danger. Now, this one breaks my heart. It's a sign to always trust your gut instincts. So several years ago, this woman had a dream in which her husband was in danger. When she woke up, she knew something was wrong and that something was going to happen to him. So she begged him not to go to work in the morning. But her husband wasn't one to call in sick, so he went to work. An hour later, he was killed in an accident, which could have been prevented if he listened to his wife. In our 9th spot today, we have the black dog. Several years ago, when this next individual was 12, they woke up from a weird dream-like vision. In the dream, they saw a black dog collapsing in the distance. Now, they didn't think much of it. I mean, it's just a dream, right? So they went to school. That evening, he came home to his mom being very upset. Turns out that their granddad's dog Daisy had passed away. Daisy was a black dog and had collapsed while out for a walk. AKA, the dog he saw dying in his dream was Daisy. Coming in at number 8, we have Rose. This next individual had a very strange dream about a woman she used to work with called Rose. Now, they weren't close at all, they were just work acquaintances, and they only casually talked. And she hardly knew anything about her personal life, so it was quite weird for her to be suddenly dreaming about her. In the dream, she was talking to Rose, and Rose was crying her eyes out. She was saying that all she wanted in life was children, and how she couldn't have them. Now, this woman woke up being like, "Ha, that's a weird dream," and thought nothing of it. The next morning, she saw Rose crying at lunch. Turns out she had just discovered that she wasn't ever going to be able to have kids. Like, how on earth did this woman predict that that was going to happen to her? It totally blows my mind. In our 7th spot today, we have the cancer. Turns out that a number of breast cancer patients have had dreams about developing cancer before actually being diagnosed with it. In a study from 2015, 18 women with breast cancer were interviewed, and more than half of them had warning dreams, and many of these women had no family or personal history of the disease. In 94% of the cases, these dreams were a warning sign to these women that they had cancer. Let's take Susan de Gregorio for example. In 2013, she started having dreams where someone would be like, "It's your time to get cancer." After these became recurring, she fought to get an extensive test done on her breasts. In between appointments, she had a dream of a woman with short curly hair in a lab coat telling her that she had stage 3 breast cancer. Soon, that dream came true. When she got her diagnosis, it was given to her by a woman in a white lab coat with short curly hair. Her dreams were right. She did have breast cancer. In our 6th spot today, we have the landslide. In 1966, a terrible landslide from a coal mine slid into the village of Aberfan, UK. Sadly, a school was destroyed by the landslide and 144 students and teachers inside lost their lives. Days before the incident, a young girl named Errol Mae Jones had a nightmare about this occurring. She said that in the dream, a black substance wiped out her school and killed her. A couple days later, she told her mom that she was not afraid to die because she was going to be with her school friends Peter and June. A couple days later, the landslide occurred. Errol sadly lost her life alongside Peter and June. Sadly, this girl predicted her end. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with Robert Kennedy's assassination. In March of 1968, a woman named Kathleen Middleton had a dream that Kennedy was going to be assassinated. For months, she had reoccurring dreams of this happening. On June 4th, 1968, she called the Premonitions Bureau a number of times. She kept reporting her concerns about Kennedy. She knew that he was going to die soon. But obviously, they did nothing about it. A day later, he was shot and killed. Had they listened to her, maybe his fate would have been different. In our 4th spot today, we had the earthquake. According to Reddit user Kosher the Writer, they always get dreams about earthquakes before they even happen. They live in California, so they tend to have a lot of earthquakes. And every time they dream about one occurring, a few minutes later, they will actually occur. They think that they are sensitive to the energies around them, and maybe that's how they can detect upcoming earthquakes. Or they're psychic, who knows, but it's pretty weird. Someone should hire him as the weatherman or something. In our 3rd spot today, we have the tornado. When this individual was only 13, him and his neighbor both had dreams of a tornado whipping through their town. As a result, the neighbor actually cut down the trees behind his house, because in his dream, the trees had fallen onto his house and destroyed it. The other guy had a dream that he was looking down on his town from space and he saw this massive tornado ripping through it. Not too long later, their dreams came true. He was outside when the wind began to turn. They rushed inside their home and a huge tornado came ripping through their town. Their street was badly destroyed as a result. This was said to be the 2nd deadliest tornado outbreak in US history. This is another guy that should work for the news station. In our 2nd spot today, we have the flight home. Due to this dad's intuition, he literally saved his life and his family's. So while on vacation, the night before his family's flight home, he had a dream that he was in a horrific plane crash. In the dream, the crash had something to do with the nose of the plane. The next morning, he convinced his wife to postpone the flight to a later time. Now, she was angry that they did this for a dream, but it's a good thing that they did. That morning, the plane that they were supposed to be on got in a terrible crash. Something was wrong with the nose of the plane and it caused them to crash upon takeoff. And in our number 1 spot today, we have the Space Shuttle Columbia disaster. On February 1st of 2003, upon re-entering Earth's atmosphere, the Space Shuttle Columbia started to disintegrate. Sadly, all 7 crew members on board lost their lives. That day, Reddit user OESJMR was taking a nap when he had a dream he was standing in a field looking up at the sky. That's when he saw a fireball fall from the sky and pieces were breaking off. That's when he heard a man's voice say, "Do not touch any pieces of the spacecraft that may crash to Earth due to potential radiation contamination." That's when he woke up. The next morning he turned on the radio and heard the same man's voice from his dream. Instantly, he was scared. So he turned on the TV to find out what the man was talking about. And that's when he saw that the Space Shuttle Columbia had disintegrated during re-entry, just like what he saw in his dream.
Starting us off with number 10 is the child molester. Here we go, people. Always gotta start off strong. Either way, this one's from Reddit user World Blender, who said her daughter was the one that had the dream, or dreams. When her daughter was 16, she'd have reoccurring dreams about a man doing disgusting things to children. And mind you, she'd never seen or met this man, but could describe him to a T. Long hair, skinny, 30 or 40 years old, dirty, and so on. The dreams kept happening, but she just brushed it off until one fateful day. She was with her mum as they went to pick up her brother from a friend's house, and as he got into the car, the girl saw a man walk out of a house a few doors along. The daughter just had a complete breakdown, crying and screaming, saying that that was the man from her dreams and to lock the doors and just leave straight away. Neither kid had seen the man before, and apparently he had moved in a few months beforehand, but no one had really even seen him leave the house. Already quite shady. Fast forward a few days, there was a huge news story about a child sex ring, and surprise surprise, the same man they saw was involved. If you want to Google it and verify the legitimacy of the story, his name was Harry Robbs, and the story happened in Clovis, New Mexico back in 2003. Fact check me, bitch. Coming in at number 9 is The Stalker. So this story was shared by Lizzie Bordens, who said when she was a teenager she used to have a reoccurring dream in which a noise outside her bedroom window would wake her up. When she looked outside the window, still in this dream, a faceless man would just be standing there watching her. Years later, Lizzie ended up getting a stalker, and he would call her house phone all the time screaming obscenities, and since he only lived a few houses away from her, he'd come to her house as well. Some nights he'd just be at her bedroom window making noise outside, and when she'd look there, obviously she would see a man with a face, not a faceless man. He'd have flowers for her or be throwing something at the window. I mean, Romeo, that is just not the way to her heart. Try a different approach, maybe not stalking. Either way, he eventually did stop stalking her, but the dreams continued, but in place of a faceless man, it was now an alligator. And since the first variation of the dream came true, I really hope the second doesn't, because we don't need to be dealing with alligators after dealing with a stalker. Like, we've been through enough, thank you and goodbye. At number 8 we have The Crash. Now this one's from Redditor Ostjamar, who said they had a premonition sort of dream that came true hours after they dreamt it. In their dream, they were in a field looking at the sky, and in it they saw a fireball falling to earth with a smoke trail behind it. Pieces of it were coming off left, right and center, and a man on the radio was saying, "Do not touch any pieces of the spacecraft that may crash to earth due to potential radiation contamination." And then the user woke up a few minutes later. Dun dun dun, what happens next? When they woke up, it was about 2:30 AM in the morning, and they had a cheeky water and bathroom break before getting back into bed. They couldn't fall asleep, so they put the radio on to listen to, hoping that would do the trick. Hours later, they woke up hearing the exact same voice from their dream on the radio, saying similar things to the dream. Thinking, what the hell is happening? Did I just dream the same dream again? They turned on the TV and saw that the space shuttle Columbia had disintegrated while re-entering Earth's orbit. So that fireball in the dream ended up being Columbia. Mind blown. Filling on number 7 slot is The Friend. So this one's from an anonymous Reddit user who said he moved school when he was about 8 or 9 years old. Halfway through the year, his new teacher told him that everyone had to clean the classroom up since a new student would be joining the next day. That night, the user had a dream that one of his old friends from his previous school was joining, but that a few weeks later he just stopped coming to school. The next day, lo and behold, the new student was in fact the user's friend, and they had a cute little reunion of sorts. A month later, the friend randomly just stopped coming to school. A few weeks later, he showed up once and then never came back. When the user got older, he found out that his friend had actually died. He had had heart problems since birth, low oxygen levels all his life, so his time had been limited, and it scared the hell out of the user that he had had a dream about it before it happened. And I mean, technically you didn't dream about him dying, mate, you just dreamed about him disappearing, but I mean, I'll give you that. It was 90% accurate. Now at number 6 is The Uncle. This one is short and sweet, except it's not sweet at all, so it's just short. Either way, Redditor DuckDuckRee said he had a dream that his mum got a call from his aunt saying his uncle had died. When he woke up a few hours later, he was terrified because for some reason, reality just felt off. Something didn't feel right, and his suspicion was confirmed a few minutes later when he walked into his parents' room and found his mum crying on the phone. She had just got the news that the user's uncle had been murdered. Can you imagine waking up from a dream like that, being low-key relieved that it was a dream, and then minutes later realizing my dream is frickin' reality. Coming in at number 5 is the rotten baby. So this one's from Reddit user Solace in Misery, who said they dreamt they were exploring an abandoned house, and after going through room after room they found a couple that used to attend the same church as them. The scene was cute considering the creepy setting. The woman had a baby in her arms, but as the user got closer they realized the baby was decayed, like it looked rotten as if it had been dead for a long time. Yet somehow it was still screaming. The user later woke up and thought the dream was just a random ass one that you just have from time to time and was just like, whatever. But a month later, the user was at a Bible study group when the woman from the couple announced that they were expecting their first child but had had a miscarriage. The dream of the rotten, decaying baby the user had was very much a creepy premonition that very much came true. At number 4 is the nose. A man was partly on vacation and partly on a work trip, and the night before his flight home he had a bad dream. In the dream the plane crashed horribly, yet he somehow survived and concluded the plane crashed because of the nose of the plane. Again, he probably wouldn't have survived, but dreams always defy the laws of life evidently, so okay. Either way, the next morning he was anxiety filled on his way to the airport because of the dream. I mean, who wouldn't be? He debated changing flights, but he had to catch that one in order to be back for a certain time. Now once he boarded, he noticed it was taking longer than usual for the plane to take off. About an hour later, the pilot spoke into the intercom saying they were checking on something that could be wrong with the nose of the plane. His anxiety was at a peak at this point, as it was the whole flight back, but thankfully it didn't crash, he survived, and the nose was fixed. But honestly, if that had been me, the first thing I would have said when I got on the plane was, hello, check the nose, I had a dream. I'm not taking any goddamn chances. I swear to God, I'm not trying to die. Honestly, I fly so much, but I low-key hate it because they're always super long flights back home, like 15 hours, and I legit think I'm gonna die every time there's any turbulence, so I'm just not about it, really. Filling our number 3 slot is the boy. This one's from Reddit user KTG4, who said his sister is the one that had this dream. Basically, the dream itself was pretty short. She dreamt a boy in their neighborhood got killed, and that's about it. Mind you, the sister had never seen the boy, never met him, she didn't even know his name. Like, this boy wasn't even on the periphery of her radar. Just like irrelevant. Either way, literally 2 days later there was a ton of news coverage about her neighborhood, and it turns out it was about the boy from her dream. He was actually her mum's friend's son, and he had been stabbed to death. Imagine being right about someone getting killed when you don't even know them, and then also the guilt of not saying anything when you should have, but then again, why would you? People have death dreams all the time, rarely ever do they come true. But sometimes, just sometimes, they do. Now at number 2 is the car accident, and this one's from Redditor SubD54, who said she had a dream about a car crash a few years ago, and a few months later it happened. The dream happened, and then fast forward a few months, she was getting into her ex's car when she had this really bad feeling that made her want to put her seatbelt on, which she never usually did. Okay, let me just stop the story right here by saying never forget to put your seatbelt on. It literally takes 1 second. It can make the difference between life and death. Do not be stupid, you guys. And yes, I'm calling the user stupid for not doing it before, but hey, at least you did it in this instant. Wear your seatbelt. Thank you, this has been a PSA. Either way, they start driving, start talking, etc., and they end up at a location she hasn't been to before. A few minutes later, as they were still driving, they get T-boned on her side of the car, and their car gets wrecked. She gets out of the car and sits on the curb while waiting for an ambulance, and in that moment is when she realizes that this had all happened before. The cars are in the exact same position as they were in her dream. She was sitting in the same position on the curb as she was in the dream. She was even wearing the exact same outfit and shoes. It was the same location, same road, same goddamn everything. Like, damn B, if you wore this outfit in a dream about a car crash, shouldn't that have been like a dead giveaway? Like, maybe something may happen to me today. How did it take the car crashing and you getting concussed for you to actually remember the dream? I'm triggered. And finally, at number 1 is the tornado. So again, this one's from an anonymous Redditor who said he had a dream he was standing in his grandma's greenhouse, and then all of a sudden an alarm clock went off and he went to turn it off. But as soon as he did, the tornado siren started going off and the greenhouse exploded in a matter of seconds. He then woke up from his dream to an actual real tornado siren going off. The boy had fallen asleep at around noon, but when he looked outside, it was quite dark. He was like, how the hell did I nap for that long? But when he looked at the time, he realized it was only 3 PM, and that's when he started shitting his pants. He went outside and saw that the clouds were moving really freaking fast. It was hailing, it was raining, it was just not a good time. It was the perfect setting for a tornado. Even the TV weather channel was freaking out and was naming places in the danger zone that happened to be near the boy's house. The boy sprang into action ASAP Rocky, got his grandma the hell out of bed and into the storm shelter, and their house was later completely destroyed with EF for intensity. Whew. Imagine if he didn't have that dream. Hopefully they would have still been safe. Hopefully the tornado siren going off would have been enough of a warning.